Welcome to Theme Weavers, your weekly wisdom for weaving yoga themes into your classes to inspire your students. We're your hosts, Heidi
and Farin.
Welcome to Theme Weavers for our 40th episode. Oh my God, 40 episodes. That's just insane. But today, Farin and I are excited to interview Rebecca Doring of the Deep Rooted Bliss podcast and fellow Chromatic Yoga teacher and mentor and just all around amazing human about her back pocket theme. And in case this is the first episode you're listening to, please check out episode 2 of our podcast, Theme Weavers Podcast, for details and background on the structure of how and why to weave themes throughout your yoga classes. So here we are. Hi, welcome, Rebecca.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me. This is great.
All right. So yeah, we'd like to welcome Rebecca. Rebecca Doring helps yoga teachers and wellness entrepreneurs take ownership of the value they uniquely have to offer and grow their business so they can get paid to do what lights them up while creating a bigger impact. She helps professionals grow their businesses in her business expansion program, Inspired Action Academy, helps individuals struggling with anxiety, discontentment, overthinking, disconnection in their relationships, or chronic self-criticism find peace in her one-to-one mentorship program, and helps brand new and experienced meditation practitioners alike explore all that they are while finding inner peace through her step-by-step, joy-focused meditation courses and classes.
They are fun. I took one of her online programs. I forget what it was called. What was it called?
Really?
Yeah, it was so lovely.
Yes, you did Journey to Peace.
Cool. Well, Rebecca specializes in making intangible concepts like self-compassion tangible. Her step-by-step approach helps her students implement deeper practices to thrive. Rebecca is the host of the Inner Critic Freedom podcast with 186 plus weekly episodes, provides extensive inspiration and guidance on Instagram at Rebecca Doring Meditation, has guested on 20 plus podcasts, has assisted international yoga teacher Matt Giordano, hey, that's our teacher too, in many yoga teacher trainings, and is the president of the Chromatic Yoga Board and vice president of the Pratt Nature School Board. Rebecca, did I leave anything out?
No, that's my full bio. It's got everything.
I want to tell something else about you. You also helped me in my 200-hour teacher training program that I ran. You came on and did a Zoom session with my trainees, and it was probably one of the most impactful things that we did in the entire teacher training program. So if you're a yoga teacher listening and you run teacher trainings, I'm sure Rebecca would love to offer this. It was like an inner critic imposter syndrome session, and it was like totally wall breaking down experience for them, and there were some amazing things that came out of it. So if that's relevant, I'm sure she would do something similar with your people too. I'm talking for you. I don't know if you would, but
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that was impactful because I
it was
absolutely
awesome.
loved it.
It was
I
a
would
really
love to do that again,
useful and
for sure.
relevant experience for them. You have things not related to yoga you should tell people, because I think it's fascinating what you used to do before getting into this line of work.
Yeah, like what I used to do for work. Yeah, I went to school for baking and pastry. So I was in the food industry, was a full-on perfectionist, which pretty much led me to where I am now. But yeah, I went to the Culinary Institute of America and had dreams of becoming a top pastry chef until when I graduated, well, I mean, the thing that drew me to become a top pastry chef was searching for a feeling of happiness and stress-free life, because I thought, right? As an 8th grader.
You obviously have not watched the British baking show. There's a lot of stress on those shows.
Right? And the British baking show is actually like the nicest, sweetest version of what it actually is. The Bear is more accurate.
I do love the Bear.
It's so good, but it is a little painfully
like high blood
accurate.
Pressure, even just watching it though, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah. Well, my 8th grader self thought that, hey, I love to bake and my parents are super stressed at work. So maybe if I get a job doing something that I love, then I will have solved the riddle to this stress thing. So for me, like that desire continued to draw me forward to where I am now. But when I graduated from culinary school, I was more burnt out, incredibly stressed out, hopped up on adrenaline and fear and self-doubt and all the things, and that led me into where I am now.
I love that. And as a mom of an incoming 8th grader who wants to be a baker and open a bakery, I'm sitting here like, ooh, do I have her listen to this story or not?
Well, to be fair, it can be done in a different place. For me, it was my journey. It brought out the very things that I needed to face within myself. And I think even now, I actually last week just my mom got married and I made her a wedding cake, and I kind of got to experience immersing myself back in that world again with the tools that I have now. And with you as a mom, I'm sure she has a lot of tools that she could use. So I think it can be done in a much different way. For me, that was my own personal journey. I could go back and be a baker and have a very different experience now. But it is a hard line of work anyway, no matter what. But it can be rewarding.
Yeah, that's so interesting to think about you going back after all of this and baking again.
Yeah.
To create something, and the shift, it's not your job right now, it was just something that you wanted to do for your mom, but like the shift in your experience using the tools that you've gained through yoga and meditation and this line of work.
Yeah, it was definitely a practice of yoga for sure. There was like most of it was all like total enjoyment, just taking in every moment. And then the end, when things weren't turning out the way I hoped they would, and I was down to the wire and I had to get it done, I started observing my body in a stress state and used like pranayama, used all these things to get myself through that moment. And yeah, it was very interesting.
That's the stuff I love students to learn about, is how yoga is not just our time on this dimension of plastic rubber thing that we sit on or a cushion that we're sitting on, right? Like that's one time of it, but how it can come out with us into our jobs, our hobbies, our relationships, our interactions, and make a bigger difference.
Yes, that's for me, I feel like I am 100% a yoga teacher, even though in my bio, you mentioned a lot of other things, but I apply it to business growth, to personal growth, to relationships, to enjoying your life. Every opportunity can be an exploration of yoga for sure.
I love that. Are you teaching classes in person?
Right now, I have a few private clients that I work with in person, and then I'll do workshops here and there for like the actual asana practice.
Yeah, it's more the online part of the business right now, right?
Yeah. Right now, my focus is helping yoga teachers, mentoring them. My focus is my podcast, my online business, and providing meditation, coaching, all of that. And also mentoring yoga teachers as well. So,
isn't that fun? I love doing that stuff.
So great.
I love it. All right, so I know that you have, but let's pretend you haven't, in case our listeners haven't listened to any. When we have our podcast in general, we try and tie our show, our yoga themes get tied to usually Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. As other stuff, we're in the middle of a chakra series, just wrapping up also. So there's different things that we draw inspiration from for our themes, but we like to offer tips on how to deliver Dharma talks on themes, how to weave thematic through line phrases through classes, whether they're yoga or meditation or any style of yoga classes, but we weave them through in order to help remind students of the themes, how to match peak postures or peak experience if it's not an asana class with the theme, and how to conclude a class so that way the students can continue to reflect on the theme off of the mat and into their life. We've also shared with our listeners that any of these themes might be a back pocket theme, meaning a theme that you can metaphorically just whip out of the back pocket of your cute jeans or yoga pants and use for any style yoga class of any time of day, any style, any season, any posture, any sequence in mind. It just works. It's just, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to prepare because you're so comfortable with the theme. No matter what you're going through as a teacher, you just whip it out and you can easily do it and inspire people. So, Rebecca, as our guest today, because usually people get to hear from Farin and I, what's your back pocket theme, whether it's an asana class, a meditation class, or something different, something that you can just whip out? And
yeah, for me, it would be the teaching of Abhyasa and Vairagya. And I apply that to literally every aspect of life. It is definitely hands down my back pocket theme because I can always incorporate some story that is relevant and help support whoever I'm working with, whether it is in an asana practice, meditation, business, inner personal growth. I apply it to everything. It is like when you when you shared this theme of your podcast, I knew instantly that is the one that I go to most often, even just for myself. I use it every single day in my habits and in every area of my life.
I'm smiling because that's also my back pocket theme. So I'm going to be so curious how you deliver it and how it might be different, because it's so fun to learn how people perceive the teachings and shift them. I think that's so interesting. And the funny part is Farin can't stand this theme.
Ha!
And it's my favorite.
So funny. So funny.
I love it. So give us your Dharma talk. Say you're teaching a group yoga class. What would your
Okay.
Dharma talk be? What story would you share?
Okay, well, I apply something I love to do with Dharma talks. For me personally, I love telling stories because I love to learn through stories, and then I love to teach through stories. So often I will think about something relevant and relatable, and it could be a personal story that actually has to do with yoga, or it could be a personal story that has to do with something else entirely, and then I love to bring it back to the yoga class, essentially. So just to walk you through my process of creating a Dharma talk, because I had not chosen a specific story to share with you today. But so let me think for a moment.
Yeah, take a breath. I love the idea of a story because it lets people connect with you as the teacher and see an authentic piece of you. Like, hey, so many people think a yoga teacher sits on a pedestal and they have all their crap worked out and they've like done all the work, and we're just like these glowy humans. Like, we have so much crap and it's like not even funny, right? We have all the stuff too, and we're constantly going through. The practice doesn't end. And so for people to see that, you know, you're not perfect, you haven't done everything, and you're just like this evolved floaty human that glows and like sprinkles glitter everywhere you walk, right? Like, we go through the stuff too, and we're always in the practice, and that makes students connect with you even more. So once they connect with you, they connect with the teaching more.
Yeah,
because they trust you.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I love sharing stories. It's why I love learning through stories as well. Like anytime I hear a teacher deliver a story in a good way, I feel like that's the lean in moment. It creates the moment where you can feel everybody just leaning in and being drawn into the teacher's world. And then when you can bring that story tied back to a teaching, it can be really powerful. So this is one story I've used quite a bit, and it's the one that's top of mind. So I'll share this now. So I would welcome my students in, and then I like to just start sharing a story. So here it goes.
Yeah. Pretend we're your students
Okay.
right now. We're eagerly on the edge of our seats.
Great. So for me, I always had a desire to become a runner, but I was the opposite of a runner. I was everything that I thought could never become a runner. I was super slow. I came in nearly last in the 1 mile test in high school. I got instant shin splints. Running felt absolutely terrible. And yet there was some desire in me that longed to know what it felt like to be a runner. And when I would pick up running here and there over the years just as like a great way to work out, and I would experience those setbacks that would come up because I would immediately, every time I would run, I would think I need to get the results and be that runner right now. And I would try and it would feel completely horrible, and I would give it up and move on. And it wasn't until a few years ago, I don't know, 5-6 years ago now, when I had the tools of yoga and I had a teaching of Abhyasa and Vairagya that enabled me to follow this desire that I know probably doesn't make sense to most of us. It didn't make sense to me why I wanted to be a runner, but it helped me start to become someone who is a runner, not just me running and feeling absolutely terribly. So when I would run, rather than thinking about, I'm going to run right now and I'm going to get the results of running, I learned how to get to know the difficulty and the effort of running and meet myself where I am, ease into it. Don't go too fast, too long right away, and start to explore, what do I love about that challenge? What do I love about the little moments before and after running? And through that experience, it enabled me to surrender and stop attaching to the results of running the way I thought I should, running successfully, running the way I thought other runners are supposed to run, and instead just allowed my own body to run. And now I'm obsessed with running. I am totally a runner. I love it in so many ways, but I love this teaching that it applies to yoga. Like, how many of us might hold ourselves back from trying a yoga pose because we believe that we don't have what it takes to do that yoga pose. We look at other people doing those poses and think, oh, I'm not strong enough for that. I'm not flexible enough for that. I could never do that. I'm everything that is the opposite of that. But if we start to practice this teaching of Abhyasa and Vairagya, which means to put in the effort without attaching to the results of it. So rather than, okay, I'm going to go into this pose to get there, to achieve the results of the pose, I'm instead going to notice the effort that it takes to engage this muscle. I'm going to bring my attention there and focus on that effort, get to know it, maybe embrace it, maybe even learn to enjoy the discomfort, the difficulty of it, and then surrender to whatever comes next. And if you keep doing that every single practice, one day that pose that was so impossible will just happen and you'll just go into it.
It's so good. I liked it. I was enthralled.
Cool.
Just sitting here. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I
Awesome.
love how you related it to running because I'm also a runner. So I was like, oh yeah, okay. But see, this is why I don't like this theme, is because I'm very attached to results. Super attached. Like if I don't get on the podium, I'm pissed off the rest of the day.
Well, it's interesting because for me, I think you can still go after the results. Like, I think that for me, in my own personal interpretation of this teaching, is that it's not about not going after the results, but it's about being present in the moment when you are going after the results. Like, I actually have a race next week that I'm doing. That's a big race that I do care a lot about, and I do want results for it. But it's like, okay, I'm going to look for the results, work towards the results, want the results even after each quality workout, but then I'm going to let go of the results when I'm actually running. Like when I'm actually running, I'm going to instead focus on the effort that is required, that if you added up all those experiences of effort, it would equal the results. But I'm just going to be here now with this effort. So some of the effort that I hate, that like a feeling in my body that starts to burn when I'm running uphill or something like that, I used to avoid that. Now I go into it and I actually learn to love it because of this practice. But to me, it's still like it's a balance of, you can still go after the results. It's just about letting go of it in the moment so that you can be present with the effort itself and the release immediately after, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. I did a 20K this last weekend, and I actually had to like unattach from any type of results because like I didn't know who was going to be out there. It's a race that pulls in a lot of people from everywhere. It's not just like our local crowd. And so I was like very in the moment. I enjoyed every minute of the race. I just loved it. I was very present and I was having a lot of fun. And then at the end, I did end up on the podium. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like that was like a bonus. But let's like this race that you have coming up, let's say that you put in the effort, you stay present in the moment, but then at the end, like you don't get the time that you wanted or the result that you wanted. You wouldn't be just like a little bit pissed off?
Well, yeah, we're still humans. Like, I think that's the thing. We're not supposed to be robots. Like, it's okay to be disappointed. But then it's like, what would we do with the disappointment? Before, for me, I think this practice, this teaching resonates so much with me because it's so opposite of how I used to be. As a pastry chef, I was so all about perfectionism. It was all about the results. And I was unwilling to put in effort that did not demand, and I knew with certainty could get me the results I wanted. I was so afraid of that disappointment that I would feel if I did not reach the goals that I set out to. I was so afraid of the failure for me personally. So, like, when now it's about, okay, if and when I don't get the results that I want in this race, then yes, let myself feel, be human, be disappointed, cry on the couch for a day if I need to. Then pick myself back up and realize how much information is available to me within that disappointment. There's so much I can learn about the next race that, okay, what brought me to this result? Okay, maybe I didn't have my hydration dialed in. Maybe my nutrition wasn't right. Maybe I held back way too much at the beginning. Maybe I pushed too hard way at the beginning. There's so many things that I can learn from and take that with me into the next one to bring success.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I think it's also about surrendering ego identifying with results too, right? Like for me, that's a big piece of it because I'm not a runner. Like I'm the you of previous iterations that you shared. Like I actually went to the hospital once in high school for faking an asthma attack. So that way I would get out of having to run the mile. And my dad even had to like pick me up at school and take me to the emergency room as I'm pretending to be like totally faked it just so I didn't have to continue running the mile. Like I get it. And like I've done many versions of like, the cute run-a-corn telling you like the couch to 5K, like how to get off your ass and be a runner. And like for a while I was running and really actually loved it. But then my back was like, you're not a runner anymore. Stop running. And that's what it is. However, I would attach my ego's identification of self to the results of the running effort. Right. So like either I am kick ass, I'm a runner, look at me, like the unicorn got me to run and I'm a runner. I am Heidi, who is a runner and accomplishes these things. And I do triathlons. Like I do these things. I am these things versus surrendering to the outcome as not part of identity. It's just something that happened. Like I accomplished this. I did this. And whether I win, lose, draw, like quit, whatever, it's irrelevant. My ego doesn't identify to it. I'm not a quitter. I'm not a winner. I'm not a loser. And that's a piece of the Vairagya too. So that way ego doesn't get too wrapped up in it.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. It's because for me, I used to very much attach my worth and my identity to my successes and my failures. And I also labeled so many things that were not failures as failures and created a lot of internal suffering as a result of that.
Yes.
But now it's like immediately I'll get the hurt, I'll get the disappointment, I'll get that sinking feeling that sucks, that is telling me that I'm human, and I let myself go there instead of also resisting that as well. But I let myself go there like, oh, this really sucks, like this hurts, and that's normal. That's a sign I'm a human being who's real. And then it's no longer attached to who I am as a person. It's just facts. It's information that I get to learn from if I choose to. And the more I learn from the perceived failures, the more I learn from disappointments in my business, in habits, in, even just like day-to-day personal habits of showing up for cleaning the house or whatever it is that we're working on. If we then see it as opportunities to learn and then get to know the effort and the joy of the effort itself, to me, it creates like a lifestyle that's so enjoyable. And that's kind of what I love to do with all of my habits, including yoga, including my business. Everything is like creating a lifestyle of my habits that I get to enjoy each moment and very much work towards results, but not attached to them.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So walk us through your class. You give this very inspiring, connective, authentic, true Dharma talk, and your student or students are super, they're like in it. And now either we start moving or we start meditating, whatever the class or the coaching session, whatever it is that you're doing. What would the practice look like? How do you have a phrase that you keep coming back to remind them of this teaching without going into like a 5 or 10 minute Dharma talk again? If it's a physical practice, how do you connect this to a peak posture if you use a peak posture, or how does this show up to align with whatever it is that you're teaching, so that way you keep weaving it through the whole class?
Yeah, I love, for physical practice, probably my go-to peak action is abduction. It's just the thing that if I ever need to not think, just choose a class, I'll choose abduction, and the peak pose can be different depending on what I'm feeling that day. But I also particularly love the experience of applying this theme to engaging the abductors, because especially for me, for a long time before I found the yogi mat, my abductors were very much asleep. So the practice of trying to get them to awaken was both frustrating. I was attached to the results immediately and I would not get results immediately. It was painful or numb, like so many different experiences. So I love applying this theme to being present, going into the experience and the feeling of engaging your abductor muscles and meeting your body where it's at. Sometimes that might mean that it cramps. Sometimes that means you don't feel anything at all. Sometimes that means you feel it so much that it's shaking and it's burning. But going into that, so a phrase that I might say is it possible to be here with the effort? go into it, explore it, embrace it. And like kind of using several exploring the effort itself. And then I love to also guide students when they come out of that engagement to use this phrase that look for the release after the effort. There's always a release. You just tend to miss it. So look for the release. Notice how your abductors feel now. I may continue to guide them to explore what it feels like after the effort, because I think it's just as important. It's like it enables you to then be able to observe the effort even more the next time around. And this the way I would approach this with meditation is the same, because the biggest barriers that my students come to me with meditation are all the effort and the discomfort that comes up, are racing minds, fidgetiness, boredom, discomfort in the body, like distractions. Everything that we believe is a sign that we're failing at meditation is actually the very effort that we need to that's actually showing us that the meditation is working and it's bringing us to our goals. It's releasing stress. It is successful, but it is really hard to sit with that. So this theme works very well with that too. It's guiding students to, is it possible to let this discomfort be here? Let your body feel exactly as it does. Let your mind be as busy at it as it is. Explore it, get curious about it, embrace it, and then notice the release after the effort. I might throw that in there in meditation a little bit, but yeah, that's how I would do it.
I love all that. I want to just jump back just for a second. I think we're speaking like chromatic language. Like we get you, we understand you.
I was just going to say that people might not know what an abductor, like the outer hip muscles, right? So abductors, the group of muscles at the outer hips that bring your leg. Abduction is when the legs go apart. So abductors are when the muscle group on the outside contracts to help draw the legs away from center. And in contrast, there's the adductors that bring the legs back to center. Those inner thigh muscles that drive everything back inward. So abductors are the outer hip muscles engaging. The opposite, bring the legs back to center. Right. So Rebecca's talking about engaging our lovely outer hip muscles to help bring the legs apart. And we just, oh gosh, they are not so super strong on a lot of people.
Right.
Especially women.
They fall asleep. And honestly, like that, when I first started running, they were still quite asleep. And now they're engaged and they help me stay way more pain-free and injury-free from my asana practice. But some peak poses that I might use, half moon, definitely a strong abductor engager. Chapasana, that's one of my favorites to teach.
I love both of those poses.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. They feel so yummy.
They do.
They're really good. I love the way that you broke that down with how that goes between either if it's a meditation class or an asana class.
Well, also for business, I'll just throw that out there since there are yoga teachers that listen to this. I find with social media, I'll use social media as an example, but it can also apply to emailing. It can apply to whatever you're doing that is required to be consistent in podcasting, to grow your business, to reach your goals. For me, it requires Abhyasa and Vairagya. So for social media, what a lot of us do is the second we make a post, we look for the immediate results. So we look for all the likes we got, all the followers we got, all the engagement we got, how many people watched it, if it helped someone. And immediately, if we don't get that result, it feels really disheartening and really difficult to show up again tomorrow.
Yeah, what's the point?
Right.
What's the point? If nobody's engaging or looking, what the heck's the point? Why should I put in this effort?
Yeah, what's the point? And it's like then we ride a roller coaster of emotions based on the number of likes you get or engagements or whatever. You get a post that works and, oh, it's working. My business is working. I can keep showing up. So instead, what changed for me, because I used to feel like I should do social media. I didn't feel connected to it personally. And I rode that roller coaster. And I started hearing from many people that I would meet that they loved my posts, but never once liked, commented, interacted.
Oh my God, that happens to me all the time. I'm like, stop lurking.
Right?
Like, say something.
Right? So many
people. Like, we don't want
people
people to know that we commented on yours, but we don't on others. I'm like, that's malarkey. No.
Totally.
No lurking.
So many lurkers become paying customers. It's just the truth. And so I started thinking about that, and then I started applying this practice to it. So I set a goal to just get regular and consistent with social media. And so through that, I let go of the immediate results and instead created the long-term results of showing up. So I marked it as a success of reaching my result when I posted instead of what that post created or not. So if I posted every day when I set that goal to post every day, that was me achieving those results. And what that enabled me to do was then I was no longer freaked out by the numbers, and I had the space to get to know what I wanted to share and then get better at sharing it. And then I would show up each day with a post like, what would I love to share? What are my students struggling with right now? How can I help today? And that's like the going into and embracing the effort itself and even enjoying the effort itself and then letting go of the results. So if you keep doing that, then it becomes so much easier to keep showing up every day. And if you're showing up every day, it becomes incredibly more likely that people will see your posts enough to actually engage with them. And if you are keeping going with that maintenance, then the results of getting clients from your social media or your podcast or your email or whatever it is that you can apply this teaching to becomes so much better. And it takes the emotional roller coaster out of the business and allows you to just focus on showing up for the tasks without worrying about if it's working or not based on every single post. Because those questions aren't really fair anyway, because there might be someone who's about to sign up for one of your workshops who's not engaging, and we're making it mean that this isn't working and we're not actually helping anyone. Meanwhile, we truly did behind the scenes and we just had no idea. So applying that, like, go into the effort, learn to enjoy the effort of creating a podcast, learn to enjoy the effort of sharing something that means something to you on social media or in an email, and then, or in a class. And if you keep doing that, it becomes so much easier to keep showing up. So I love this teaching.
That's like one of the Peloton teachers that teaches like workout classes. She always like, the hardest part is over. Check done. You showed up.
Yeah.
It's the same idea, right? You showed up online. You did it. Check done. Effort went in. It happens. Or whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah. I apply that.
I cut you off, Farin. I'm sorry, by the way.
It's okay. No, I was just saying, like, that's a great application to real life, is like social media or like growing your business. But let's say you're trying to wrap up your yoga class. What kind of little speech at the end might you give to help like tie a bow on your whole theme, bringing them back to the Dharma talk, bringing them back to the theme, and then how they can like walk off of their mat thinking about this throughout their day?
Sure. Yeah, I love to guide them out of Shavasana into a seated pose and kind of tune inward a little bit. And I would say, take a moment to appreciate the efforts that you've put in today's class. What if every single effort is adding up, creating long-term results in your body, long-term positive patterns, long-term changes in your mind, in your physical well-being, in your lifestyle? Take a moment to appreciate the moments of release after every single one of those efforts, the letting go, the surrender. And how did that bring you into the present moment, into the experience of your asana? When you leave your mat today, how can you bring this practice into your daily habits? Is there some area of your life that you are currently longing for the results, in a hurry to get to your results, maybe comparing yourself to others, not believing that you can bridge that gap? And what if you were to bring your attention to the effort, embrace it, explore it, get to know it, maybe even learn to enjoy it, and give yourself the opportunity to enjoy the release after each and every effort? How would that support you in reaching your goals?
I love it. I love what you said. You said long-term positive patterns. I think I'm going to steal that. I'm going to teach that today. Like immediately after this recording, I have to go teach. So yes. What long-term positive patterns are you creating? I love that. Yes.
I love that. And I also find your voice just like I'm being soothed by a lullaby. Like something about, as you're talking, I'm just like, I feel like you're rocking me. Like such a beautiful voice.
Thank you so
it's
much.
So soothing. It's so soothing. I love it. All right, this is awesome. Farin's inspired, literally going to hang up and going to go teach and be inspired by you, which is that's the whole purpose of this, right? I absolutely love it. So what we do is we condense all of your back pocket theme, your Abhyasa and Vairagya, the way that you weave it through the class, the way you bring it out, other little things that we gleaned into what we call an Inspo Sheet, short for inspiration. Very trendy. Farin's like, what are you, a millennial, Farin?
Of course
Is
I
that what you
am.
are? Yeah, so you use words like inspo. I'm like, it's an inspiration sheet. Okay. A millennial inspo sheet. So our listeners can grab it at our website, and that will be at themeweaversyoga.com/episode 40. And we'll put the link also in the show notes. And you can use that inspo sheet to bring Rebecca's back pocket theme of Abhyasa and Vairagya alive in your own voice, in your own practice, and your own teaching, no matter what kind of class it is.
Yay.
Yay.
Rebecca, if listeners want to find you online, where do they go? Who do they follow?
Yeah, Instagram, Rebecca Doring Meditation. And then if you enjoy podcasts, since you're listening to one now, you can find me on any platform called Inner Critic Freedom. And on that podcast, I share, it's also the tagline is called Rise Above Imposter Syndrome. So it's all helping yoga teachers grow your businesses. It's kind of like Dharma Talks applied to business every episode. So you can find it there.
It's so
Thank
great.
you.
It's so great, especially for teachers that have, I mean, every teacher I've talked to at some point or another, and then it resurges later, has those moments where they're like, feel like they're not good enough in some way, shape, or form, whether it's that their numbers shift and they're putting their value on the results, right? How many people show up. And so then they feel kind of yucky when people just aren't showing up, whether or not it's related to them or not, or whether they feel like they're just using somebody else's words and they're not true to them yet, or they're just trying to be something that they're not good enough at because they're so busy comparing themselves to other people. Whatever it is, everybody goes through it once, twice, all the time. And Rebecca's podcast is so beneficial to you if you're going through any of those experiences. And don't pretend that you're not, because we know you are at some point or another. And maybe not even yoga teachers. I imagine any wellness professional or like any entrepreneur in general, somebody that's putting themselves out there in the world doing something, or maybe not even an entrepreneur. Anytime you're doing something and filling in a role that might feel new or foreign, or you just don't feel good enough at it, or that you don't belong.
Yeah, anytime we're growing, we set goals and we start expanding ourselves, it's natural for these doubts to come up. So I love to support really any goal setter. But yes, for sure, there's specific business tips to wellness professionals as well. So you can find a bunch of stuff on there.
Love it. So
And you get to listen to your voice.
Yes.
We'll link to your podcast and your Instagram and everything in our show notes as well. And then, of course, listeners, you can reach out to us, Theme Weavers Yoga, on Facebook, Instagram, or by email, and let us know how Rebecca's back pocket theme lands with your students. We're here to support you, fellow yoga teacher, in your class prep and delivery. So let us know how we can be of the most support. Then tune in next week for another episode of Theme Weavers. Until next time.
We weave you in peace.